Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to begin. And as everybody knows, always that our things are recorded. So I think as we're getting closer to Pesach, they're relying on our recordings. But it is absolute pleasure, really a real great pleasure for me to invite Rebbetzen Bulow to join us. And it's really quite amazing, because when we connect with people, we live in such a tiny Jewish world, right? That we never actually even know where it comes from. But I have to tell you, one of the things that I got to Rebbetzen Aliza Bulow, who Be'ezras Hashem will be joining us at some time soon, works together with Rebbetzen Bulow. And wherever I went over our Chalamek in November, everybody was bringing Rebbetzen Bulow, all my wonderful students and people that I'm close to, and Cara Woodmont and all these people. And I was like, okay, I have to meet Rebbetzen Bulow. And when we actually, it took me long enough, and we still need to do the next catch up, because Aliza, if I tell you that I've actually got a bowl inside with my beginning of my sourdough bread for Shabbos. Okay, my second week. Last week it was awesome. So my second week now. And when we were in our conversation, I said, well, you have to have spent some time in Eretz Yisrael. And Aliza says, yeah. And I said, well, where were you? And would you believe it? That we actually lived for about 3 months door to door in the same dormitory 40 years ago. 40 years ago. I mean, I don't, isn't that just absolutely amazing? So now, today, Rebbetzen Bulow is the founding director of CORE. And CORE is an organization that supports women as they strengthen the Jewish people. She's taught Torah and guided many rabbinic couples and lay leaders of the community over the last 30 years. And I have to tell you, all I can tell you is that I hear the absolutely superb job that you're doing. And I am on a group, and I'm watching just how busy everything is. And I really think, oh my gosh, where were you 30 years ago? You know, you were just starting out, and I was there in Leeds, and we could have actually been doing this together from Leeds and wherever we were. But Hashem decided that it was this amount of time that we would actually wait until we get there. Aliza, my mother, is somewhere on the screen, and I was going to introduce you before when she came on, but she goes behind the screen, and my stepfather, and they live in Eretz Yisrael. So it is always really an incredible thing for all of us to be here, and always to be able to greet my mother here as well as everybody else. And before we begin, I just wanted to thank our sponsor of tonight's share, and it is Le'ilu Nishmas, Rav Mordechai Moshe Bedil Ben David, and also Golda Leah Bedil Bas Yisrael Ze'ev. And both their neshamas should have a real aliyah, and we should be zoche to all be together in Yerushalayim very soon. So you are here with us for our finale before we are leaving Mitzrayim and joining. So I'm going to hand over, and thank you for really being with us.
Sure, my pleasure. So nice. You know, I met you at I mean, I didn't even realize that we met 40 years ago, but the first time that we met recently was in Australia.
That's right, in Australia, in Melbourne. There you go.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah, the connections really are something else, that we can all come together in these ways. It's such a special thing. So, so thank you so much for arranging this, Strand. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to be here with you. Okay, so there's all kinds of things to talk about. And I really do want to talk about how do we step out of our past and into our future, and what Pesach is about that. So as John mentioned, I'm close with Lisa Levine. She works with me, and I sent her daughters some books that I loved growing up. The Little House on the Prairie books. Who has read them? Anybody read them? Okay, good. So her daughters hadn't, and I don't think Lisa had either. And I said, what do your girls read? Like, what's the equivalent book? So she sent me some titles of boarding school, girls in boarding school books. And then I thought about it later, and I thought, it's interesting, because actually the Little House on the Prairie books are not about how a girl grows up or the American growing up experience. it's really about how America grew up through the eyes of this girl that grew up. It's a very different type of a thing. So, so the question really is, how did we as Jewish people grow up? Like, what's our story? And the story of, the reason why I started with Little House on the Prairie is because it really is a story of American pioneers who, most of whom came from the UK, right? And then came to America to leave their past behind and step into their future. That's the energy of America. The underlying national energy of the United States of America is leave your past behind and step into a new tomorrow. That's the whole thing, really. That's the American dream, is it doesn't matter where you came from, it matters where you're going, and you can go there. And that's the definition of the American dream. So, and where does that come from? It really comes from Pesach. It comes from the idea of the Jews. And the early Americans really saw themselves as, even though they weren't Jewish, but they saw themselves as Jewish. And they saw themselves in the Jewish journey of leaving behind evil King Pharaoh, the King of England, and heading out into the uncharted desert of America to create a Bible-based society. That's how they saw themselves. And you even see that in the Statue of Liberty, embodying America, thinking that they are the light unto the nations, right? Holding up their lamp and illuminating the world is a very American idea. That yes, Americans think they're exceptional. So what does that mean in terms of the Jewish journey? How does the Jewish journey inform that? Because it really does. It really comes down to Pesach and who we are as a people, who we Jews are as a people. What's our origin story? So in thinking about an origin story, who we are, origin stories are usually for superheroes. I don't know if anybody saw Wonder Woman, but that was the origin story of that superhero. So what's a superhero? A fictional character that does good, that protects people, that is for peace and justice or whatever it is, but somebody that swoops in to do good. So as Jews, we are not exactly superheroes because we're not fictional, and we don't swoop in either to do good. However, we infuse underneath to do good. That's our job, is to transform the world. We're here for that. And we got our superpower when we left Egypt. So on our way out, the first mitzvah that we got as a Jewish people, I'm sure you all know, what is it? I'll just read your lips. Come on, guys. Our very first mitzvah as a nation was
10 Commandments.
That was at Sinai.
Rosh Chodesh.
That's right.
Rosh
Good job.
Chodesh.
Good job. Yes, Rosh Chodesh. Excellent. So Rosh Chodesh was our first mitzvah that we got as a Jewish people, and that's actually when Hashem gave us our superpower. Because this is what he said. Okay, you bunch of Jews who just went through all these plagues and came out of Egypt, and you're standing here in the desert, and now it's time for your first national mitzvah all together. Moshe, look up in the sky and see that sliver. This month shall be to you the first of all months. So it's really a double mitzvah. First is that we're going to count time by the months, and the first month is Nisan. So really we're coming up to a Rosh Hashanah, because we think about Rosh Hashanah as a fall thing, but really it's also a spring thing, because this is the first month. Like for whoever dates checks, I try, if I can, to always write the name of the month, not the number of the month, because Jewishly, the numbers of the month start with Nisan. That's month number 1, not January. Number 1 is Nisan, and that's this mitzvah. This month shall be to you the first of months. And then it's also, the deeper esoteric mitzvah is this. Let's start counting time by the moon. Let's count time differently, by the month, not by the year. Year in Hebrew is a shana, and month in Hebrew is a chodesh. Shana means either change, like a shinui, or repeat, like vishinantam livanecha. Repeat these words to your children, right? Shana. So if you think about the circular pattern of the year, it's repeat, repeat, repeat. Of course, we don't want to repeat a year. We want it to always be something new. which is why for Rosh Hashanah, we make a challah that's in a spiral, right? So that we should go around, but go up and up and up, right? It shouldn't just be that going around and around and around. But here for Rosh Chodesh, Hashem said, stop counting time by the sun. That's how the Egyptians count their time. The Egyptians believe in how you're born is how you are. There's a caste system and you're born into it. And whoever is low stays low and can never go higher. And whoever is high stays high and can never go lower. And how you're born is your destiny. It's the opposite of the American dream. How you're born is not your destiny. You make your own destiny, right? So, but the caste system says how you're born, you're stuck with that. So you're stuck in this caste system. You're stuck as a slave. You're stuck as somebody who's lower, or you're stuck as somebody who's higher. Maybe somebody who's higher doesn't want to be stuck in the palace either, but you're stuck. Wherever you are, you're stuck. And they worship the sun. And Hashem said, okay, I'm taking you out of stuck, out of born into your destiny, out of the sun counting and into moon counting. And the root of moon counting, chodesh, is chadash, is new, renewal. You're not stuck. You can make yourself new and new and new. And so Rav Hirsch, Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, says that verse, instead of reading it, this month shall be to you the first of months, ha-chodesh hazeh lechem, the Rosh Chodeshim, it could be this newness, this ha-chadash hazeh, this newness shall be the first of all newnesses to you. That's our superpower, is no matter where you came from, you can make yourself new. No matter what your circumstances are, you can make yourself new. No matter what's behind you, you're not trapped in it. You can always go forward in a different direction. There is no trap. You can make yourself new and new again and new again. And if you look at the Jews, that's what we've done. This is our superpower. They just recently, there was a book, The Startup Nation. We know how to start up, right? We could start up an argument. We could start up a startup business. We could start up a nation. We can start up wherever we go. We start fresh everywhere, right? There was just recently, I saw passing around WhatsApp, some meme about, because the, I guess I forgot what it's called, but whatever, it landed on Mars, right? Yeah, finally landed on Mars. So they showed the first picture of the Mars scape, and there's a Chabad house already there. So Jews know how to start wherever they are, no matter how far away it is. There's always a Jew that's willing to start something fresh. So that is the superpower of the Jew. And that's what God was saying, is as you come out of Egypt, you're going to have to be able to start fresh. But actually, our origin story goes further back than that. It actually starts with Abraham, the very first Hebrew. He wasn't a Jew yet. He was a Hebrew, right, in Ivri, an other-sider. The word Hebrew means other-sider. He was an other-sider, and his first direction was, lech, go, leave behind your past and go into a new future, right? Lech lecha, go where? There's a destination. It's not just leave. It's also go towards. So this first lech lecha is go towards yourself. Go towards yourself. Lech lecha, go into who you are. And what should you do? Rav Hirsch juxtaposes the two verses. Leave your birthplace, leave your father's house, leave the land, and go to where I'm going to show you, right? And the next verse is, and I'll make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great. So really the three things that you're leaving behind, leave your land. So then where do I get my nationhood from? Second verse, God says, don't worry, I'll make you into a great nation. Leave behind your birthplace. So then how will I identify? Don't worry, what will be how will I get stuff in the world? Like if I don't have a birthplace, I'm not rooted, I'm a stranger. Oh, don't worry, I'll bless you, God says in the second verse. Leave behind your father's house. How will I have a name? Like what's the name that I show up with in the world? And God says, I'll make your name great. You leave your past behind, I'll fill it in for you, right? So these two verses start with a go towards yourself, leave behind your past, I'll give you a new future, but your actual destination, the end of those two verses is v'hayeh bracha, and you shall be a blessing. Not you'll be blessed. You shall be a blessing, right? That's your job in the world, is to be a blessing. When you go towards yourself, you become a blessing. And the next verse is, I'll bless all those who bless you, and I'll curse all those who curse you, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed through you, right? So that's how we start this process of our job is to leave behind our past, go towards our future, and become a blessing. That's really our destination. It's not just to go anywhere, but it's to become a blessing in the world. And then Abraham has a conversation with God. And God says, guess what? I'm going to make a whole huge nation through you, and you're going to inhabit this whole land. And Abraham says, how will I know? Which is a very weird question to ask God when he's telling you stuff. And God's answer is even weirder. His answer is, your children will be strangers in a strange land, and they'll be worked and oppressed. And in the end, they'll come out with a lot of stuff. That's a very weird answer also. So our sages say, what kind of question is that? And what kind of answer is that? And they explain it this way. Abraham says, okay, God, I get that you're telling me now I'm chosen to be a blessing in the world, and that my children will be many, and I'll inherit this whole earth, and I'll be able to transform everything in all humanity. But I don't see how that's going to happen. Like, I don't see my kids, and I don't see the future, and I don't see how they're going to make this choice. Like, how is it going to work that all my children will make the same choice that I made to connect with you? And God said, don't worry, I've got this covered. A whole workshop I've designed. It's called Egypt. I'm going to take the whole family into Egypt. I'm going to squeeze them tight. And then when I've wrung out every drop of what's normal in them, I'll take them squeezed tight to Mount Sinai, where I'll open them up in the light of the Torah, and they will absorb light in all those places, the light of the Torah in all those empty spaces where I squeezed them tight in Egypt. And from that, they're going to become the light bearers of the planet, right? And that is our job, to be a light unto the nations. So really, if you think about it, what we were invested with was this glow in the dark capacity to be a blessing to others, right? And we do glow in the dark. That's our job, is to be this light. And the light is the Torah that we share with everyone. Think about even where we keep a Torah. Where is that space in a shul? What is it called? An Aron Kodesh, right? An Aron in Hebrew means a cabinet, but it doesn't really. The root of the word cabinet, in this case, Aron, is or, light. It's a light box. We keep a Torah in a light box because it is a book of light. But where is a Torah really supposed to live? Like, it's not supposed to be a book in a box, right? It's actually supposed to live in our hearts, right? Where Hashem says, make a space, build this huge, beautiful space for me so that I could live inside you, right? That's where Hashem wants to live, is inside us. So we have to make that whole Torah go inside us. Okay, so how does that work really? Right, so we have this opportunity. We have our superpower. Make a new start, make a new start, make a new start. It's not easy. Hashem says, I'm going to send you on a long, arduous journey, really long, really arduous, for you to be able to be that underlying, infusing power of light into all humanity. And where you're going, you're going to need this superpower. But I'm going to scatter you all over the whole earth to infuse your energy, your light, your beauty in all the nations, all around the world. All the nations will be blessed by you. Whoever blesses you will be blessed. Whoever's cursed will be cursed. But in the end, the whole thing needs to be a bracha. You're supposed to be a bracha. And all the nations will be blessed by you. Not all the nations will bless you, but they'll be blessed through you. But the only way they'll be blessed, actually, is the beginning of that verse. Listen again. Whoever blesses you will be blessed, and I will bless whoever blesses you, and I will curse whoever curses you, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed through you. Which means what? We have to live in a way that the other nations bless us, not because we need their blessing, because we need them to be blessed. Right? Think about that. The only way for them to be blessed is if they bless us. So we have to live in a way that makes them bless us so that they'll be blessed, so that we can fulfill our job of being blessers, because that's our job, v'hayei bracha, right? Leaving behind your past and walking into your new self who is that self? It's that self of carrying the light forward in the world. So how do we do that? It's actually a long process. And it's interesting to think about, well, let's think for a minute about this egg that we have on the Seder plate, right? We have an egg on the Seder plate, and then many people have a custom to start the meal, the Seder meal, with a hard-boiled egg. Anybody do that in this group? Raise your hand if you start with a hard-boiled egg, right? So why do we do that? Why do we start with a hard-boiled egg? What's the point of that? So there is a concept that the Seder night is the same day of the week as Tisha B'Av. So there's some kind of mourning thing, a connection of mourning with the round in the morning, which is one of the valid answers to that question. But I'll share with you a different answer that I like, which is that the Jewish people were born like a chicken, twice. We're born twice. First, we were squeezed out. An egg is born twice, right? First, the egg is born from the hen, but it's not a chick yet. The egg is squeezed out of the hen, so it actually exits its mother, but then it has to incubate for however long until the actual chick itself pecks its own way out of the egg. And so the Jewish people were born like that. And that's one reason that we eat that egg, is because the exodus from Egypt is like the egg being born from the hen, squeezed out of that narrow place, plop into the desert. We're not yet a people. We have to incubate in the desert for 7 weeks first. We incubate and incubate and incubate until we receive the Torah, which is really our hatching. We had to stand there. We had to receive the Torah. We had to say yes. It was this dual process. We didn't become a nation just by getting out. It was the dual getting out of slavery and then receiving the Torah that made us into the newly born Jewish people. But wait a second. If Passover is this festival of freedom, and we just left slavery to Pharaoh, what's up with becoming slaves to God, right? You just leave behind one set of laws to get a second set of laws. Like, how's that a festival of freedom? Maybe it's just a shift of ownership so that we have a better master than we had before, one that's benevolent instead of mean. But is that free? So we have to think about that a little bit. What is the freedom that's gotten when we leave servitude from one and enter servitude to another? Really is a question. Like, how do we achieve our future of being that light into the world, or being a blessing, or transforming all humanity through the light that we shine in every society that we go, by having a heavy book of law to carry with us wherever we go? So let's just do a thought experiment for a minute. And in this thought experiment, think in the most general terms, please, most general. And we don't have to get specific, but just very general terms. Let me just check, I see this, okay. Okay, in Saudi Arabia, are women free? No, why not? Bad laws and good enforcement, right? In Mexico, are women free? Mostly, but can they go out alone? Can they wear their jewelry? Can they shop without worry? Can they? Not really. Why not? Well, they have good laws there. They have bad enforcement. In the United States, in general, in England, are women free? Yeah, they are. Why? Because there's good law that's good enough that we pretty much all agree to keep it, pretty much. Like, it's fair. It's a just law that everybody pretty much agrees to keep it. And for those who don't agree, there's an enforcement around the outside edges, which makes everybody safe, right? Good law makes you free. Good law makes you free. So the Torah is a set of good law that brings you to a place of freedom. It is good law that creates freedom. It creates a just society in which everyone is free. And if you look at, I mean, there's so many laws that are harder to figure out, let's say, like putting on tefillin or putting up a mezuzah, although you could put that into the framework of reminding you of why you keep the law. But there's certainly plenty of law about having a just system, or equal access to services, or not elevating the poor above the rich, or the rich above the poor, or whatever it is. There's all kinds of laws that ensure a just society. So good law does make you free. So we did go from an evil set of laws that enslaved us to a set of laws that we do have to serve. We do serve God through that set of laws, but it is about freedom. It's not about entrapment. I personally have a definition for the word mitzvah, which some people would say is a commandment, which it is, or a good deed is a common translation of mitzvah in English, which is hard for it to encompass all the mitzvahs because not all mitzvahs are good deeds. I mean, they're good to do, but like, really, who cares if you, I'm trying to think, what's a mitzvah that's hard to figure out? Carry a spade with you into battle so that you could cover up your waist. Like, is that a good deed? Maybe it's nice so somebody else won't step in it. Okay, fine. But good deeds, right? So really, my definition for a mitzvah is a physical pathway to a spiritual destination. That's really what it is. It's a connector. The word mitzvah means to connect. And it connects body and soul. It connects Jew to God, connects person to God, because there are some mitzvahs for non-Jews too. But really what it is, it's a transformative act. They're acts, right? So they're physical pathways to a spiritual destination. So as we enter into receiving the Torah, leaving behind a master that makes it so that we can't actually function on our own thoughts and move forward into a space where we can now have free will and exercise that free will, we then get all these pathways of how to use that free will. Well, how do we leave behind where we've been and move into a space of real increased capacity where we can exercise our free will, where we can ask questions, where we can wonder? It's fascinating to think about the word Pesach. Like, why is the holiday called Pesach? So first, we'll just do a little drush here, a little commentary explanation of the word. You could take the word Pesach, which really means skip, which we'll do in a minute. It means pass over, literally pass over. That's what Pesach means. But you could take the word Pesach and divide it into two. Pesach, the mouth that speaks. Because in Egypt, we couldn't actually speak. We were suffering so much. For sure, we didn't have a voice to be able to say to Pharaoh how we felt or what we needed, or there was no voice there. But we couldn't even talk to Hashem. Really, it says that we just groaned and Hashem heard our groaning. Like, we couldn't even get to a prayer that came with words attached. It was just the groaning of a miserable person. And that's what Hashem heard and took us out there. But now we have this mitzvah of celebrating that, the Haggadah, the talking. That's what Haggadah means. Say it, say it, say it. Pesach is talk, 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 the mouth that talks, talks, talks. And the central part of the Seder is question, 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 right? It's all about talking and questioning and thinking and engaging and being part of it and saying it over and using our mouths with that capacity to create worlds through speech and ask questions and wonder and the argument that happens around. I mean, the way that families often, I don't mean the negative argument, I mean the over talking and the argument and the way that things are brought forward by questions, that passionate engagement is the classical expression of people who are free to talk and ask and wonder and mull it over and think it through. Slaves can't do that. Only free people can really wonder, really think, really ask, really question, and really have their mouths talk, talk, talk about it. So we have that, that's the opportunity at the Seder, is to really talk and to really bring ourselves forward through that. But now let's think about how we got out. Pesach. Why should Pesach be called Pesach? I mean, it's a weird thing, actually. If God wanted to get the Jews out of Egypt, did he need 10 plagues? Like, did he need Pharaoh to agree? What was up with that? God's God. He could just say, Jews, I want you out, and click. Or he could Harry Potter it. Or he could, I Dream of Jeannie it for whoever's older. Or bewitch it. Like, whatever it is, there's a lot of magic ways God could have taken the Jews out. He did not have to get Pharaoh to agree. And he did not have to do 10 plagues and use magic in that way. He could have used magic just to, like, a magic carpet, right out. Out they go. So clearly something else was going on. Why the 10 plagues and why that display of power and wonder and what was necessary through that whole thing in order to bring the Jews out in that way. And our classic answer for why it's called Pesach is because Passover is because the final plague after the full beating down of Pharaoh, where he hardened his heart and hardened his heart and hardened his heart, the final one was God passed over the Jewish houses. So we call it Passover. But really, Rabbi David Foreman points out, it doesn't make any sense. Why should we call it Passover? One aspect of one of 10 plagues, why don't you call it the essence of what it is, like Exodus Day, or Freedom Day, or Bonds Are Broken Day, or like, why Passover? That's one aspect of one thing, but the main thing is we got out. So it's a strange name for the day, which really is about our freedom, or really about our exodus, or really about the end of slavery. That's just passing over that one aspect of that one plague. So what could we think about as being passed over? And what might be passed over was our readiness for the Exodus. The Jews really didn't get it together so well in Egypt. I mean, we actually did succumb to a lot of idol worship and a lot of entrapment, caste systems, and we bought into a lot of it. Enough that 4/5 of the Jews didn't come out. 4/5 of the Jews stayed behind. So only 1/5 came out. And why did they come out? We have a classic discussion of what merit they had, because we have this Kabbalistic understanding. They descended and descended and descended and descended and descended till the 49th level of descent. And if they would have hit number 50, the whole thing would have been obliterated. But they didn't. At 49, God said, wait, you're about to hit 50. I have to take you out now. And out they went. Based on what? Based on a promise that God made, and based on 3 little things that the Jews kept. They kept their names, their dress, and wait, what was the third thing? Kept their names, their dress, and their language. So 3 cultural things. None of those are law. They liked bagels. I don't know if you eat those in England. They liked bagels. They told a Jewish joke. They had a Jewish name. Maybe they wore a little star around their neck, like something they identified, but they weren't keeping mitzvahs necessarily. They got out based on their cultural connections and a promise. Hashem took them out. So what did Hashem really skip? Hashem pulled them from the 49th level of descent up 49 levels where they could receive the Torah. So he pulled them up past their prerequisites. All the prerequisites that were necessary to escape from Egypt were actually passed over. And Hashem said, guess what? I have to pass over all that stuff. Let me just pass over the opening that's necessary for you to get out. It says, open for me. Hashem says, open for me a tiny opening, the size of the eye of a needle. And if you open for me that tiny little bit, I can open that up into the size of a hall, like a wedding hall, right? I can make it that big. But I need you to take that first step, just open that tiny little eye of a needle. And we haven't even opened up that much in Egypt. We groaned, but we didn't do the spiritual work to open that up. And Hashem said, guess what? I'm going to skip over even the opening. Pasach al ha-petach, Pasach al ha-pesach. And Hashem skipped over the opening. He skipped over our doorways. That's the petach, right? An opening. But he also skipped over the opening in our hearts that we didn't fully make what we needed. So we were born just like that. The egg plopped into the middle of the desert. And then we had to go through 49 days of work to actually fix up the 49 levels of descent that we had descended to. And at the same time, build up 49 steps to be able to receive the Torah. What's up with 49? 49 is actually an amazing number. It's 7 sevens. 7 is the days of the week. It's also the 7 lower mystical emanations or spirot of God. There's 10, you take the top 3 off, but we talk about the 7 in the lower areas. So 7 is a very important Jewish number. 7 is considered the number of nature. And everything is full and complete with 7. 6 sides of a cube, and the center of space is Shabbos. And so that's the inner dimension, is that seventh space. And 8 is above that. 8 is the realm of the soul, right? 8, you say 8 in Hebrew, Shmona. But if you rearrange the letters of Shmona, you get Neshama, right? 8 is the realm of the soul. That's why we do a bris milah on the 8th day. That's the realm of the soul where we connect, right? So now think about 7 times 7 equals 49. The actual 8, the realm above 7 sevens is 50. And we get the Torah on the 50th day. So you could see if 50 is a super 8, then if we would have hit 50 levels of descent, the whole world would have been obliterated, because it couldn't continue to exist if we had gone past that level of the most natural nature that's possible to be. 7 sets of nature, 7 sevens in every dimension. If we would have hit 50, we would have been gone. So we were pulled out at that very moment so that we could do then in the desert that repair of the descent and the building of the ascent up to getting ready to receive the Torah on 50, that time above nature, that time for transcendence. So we were built for that. So we have this counting of those 49 days, and each one of them working on one of those divine emanations that we can step through to grow ourselves. That we can say, okay, let me find some additional physical pathways to spiritual destinations, whether they are mitzvahs or other ways of working with who we are. We can step into those spaces during the counting of the Omer towards a different future, so that Passover is always the time to leave behind what's not working for us and step into where we want to go. This is it. It's such a powerful time. We think about Rosh Hashanah in the fall of that time of making fresh starts. Really, Passover is such a time of fresh starts. But actually, the two Rosh Hashanahs are exactly opposite each other on opposite sides of the year. And there's fascinating parallels between the two. Both have a non-verbal prayer attached to them, right? So think about the Passover pre-Exodus prayer was just that, I can't even say anything. Like the prayer is stuck in your throat. It can't even go into words here, right? But the non-verbal prayer of Rosh Hashanah is the shofar. Past your words and out it goes. You just blow it straight up and Hashem catches it and makes that into whatever prayer he wants. It doesn't even need words. It just transcends it. So you have like this pre-word prayer and this post-word prayer that are associated with each of these Rosh Hashanahs. But they're two separate fresh starts. One is a fresh start in the physical world, and one is the fresh start in the spiritual world. And actually, this is the fresh start in the spiritual world. That's the fresh start in the physical world. It's the end of the summer. Kates. Summer is Kates. Kates, the end. And then you begin, right? You begin something new. But really, if you think about it, just like our days, our Jewish days begin at night, right? It was the evening and the morning, the first day. So our Jewish year begins at night in the fall, just like in the setting of the sun of the day is when the setting of the sun of the year is when the year begins in the fall. And it goes through the fall into the winter, into the dark of winter, into this excitement of spring, into the brilliance of summer, but shuts down again in the fall. The day's over in the dark. That's the physical year. But the spiritual year begins here, Pesach time. You start with the sparkling light of the spring. You go into the full blossom of the summer. You experience some hard times in the fall. You go into the freezing cold winter. But in the end, you end with hope and light again. Spirituality always ends with hope and light because it's always going forward to something new and fresh. Whereas physicality ends in death, right? It ends in the fall. You start, you go forward, you experience hope, promise, blossom, and then you're back in the dark. So physicality ends in the dark and spirituality ends in the light. We always have light going forward in the spiritual year, and we always have dark going forward in the physical aspect. The physical world ends and the spiritual world continues. You might not know that the time is counted differently in the temple. Days in the temple are counted from sunup to sunup instead of sundown to sundown. So the rest of the world, the days are counted dark to dark, but inside the holy space of the temple, they're counted light to light, just like our spiritual year is counted light to light. So we actually have these, think about these two circles of the year turning inside each other like that. The physical year starting in the fall, going to the fall, the spiritual year starting in the spring, going to the spring. And then both of them having their non-verbal prayers associated with it. And then both of them having their month of preparation beforehand, right? The physical year has a whole month of spiritual preparation, all that Elul time where we do all that introspection. And the spiritual year having a whole month of physical preparation, right? Where our main job now is to not like write our lists and do tshuva and think about ourselves and make those phone calls. Our job here is to sweep and wipe and think, what am I letting go? What am I letting go? What am I letting go? And just let go of all the old stuff, right? It's a physical pathway to a spiritual destination, right? We have this physical road that we walk, getting ready for Passover, until we sit down at that spiritual place where we get to jump over, totally pass over all the prerequisites. Any spiritual work we didn't do, no problem. You get to leap over it right into who you want to be. That's what's exciting about Pesach. And it's something to think about. You might, while you're sweeping, want to think about, what do I want to leap over? What do I want to leave behind? And what can I use? At the Seder night, it's a time to pray and say, Hashem, I want to skip the prerequisites. Please help me pass over what I didn't accomplish yet, or what I don't know, or what I'm a little nervous about, or what I'm scared of. What can I pass over, leave behind my past, and step into my new future? How can I harness the energy for that? But that's what Pesach is about, is totally jumping into the light and knowing that you don't have to have all the prerequisites managed. You get the whole 7 weeks ahead to really build the scaffolding underneath to hold up your goals. So, and that's what Sfirat Omer is about. My colleague and friend, Lisa, and I wrote a lovely publication, the Omer Times. Anybody who wants to, I don't know if you're going to be passing that out, Jan, but it's a weekly edition to think about, how do I want to build this week? How do I want to build this week? It has jokes, it has articles, it has puzzles, it has serious things, it has Kabbalistic things, it has lighthearted things, recipes, cocktails, like just a publication for each week to be able to grow and count up to Shavuos, so that you can go from the jumping over into where you want to go into how you want to get there. Everybody, of course, has to make their own thoughts about how they'll get there, but that's the opportunity we have, is to incubate inside that egg that was plopped into the desert. Now we have this time, the 7 weeks in between Passover and Shavuos, to incubate, and for Shavuos to peck our way out and actually be born into who we are, who we want to be. So that's our opportunity to really like stand there Shavuos time, ready to receive the Or HaTorah, the light of the Torah, into those empty spaces that were squeezed out for Passover, and receive that light for Shavuos, and create a future of shining in the world and becoming a bracha. I have one more thought I should maybe share. Let me just make sure I covered what I wanted to here. Okay, good. Do you have a question, John, before I share one more thought? Okay. Okay, I think it's a fascinating thing. Let's just go back to our origin story. Think about Abraham. Think about the Lech Lecha. Think about the promise. Think about the direction. Become a bracha, right? V'hayeh bracha. All the nations, I'll curse all the nations that curse you. I'll bless all the nations that bless you. All the nations will be blessed through you. And he taught that to his son Yitzchak, who taught that to his son Yaakov, who had his 12 sons, who needed to leave Lavan's house with his 12 sons and encounter scary things ahead. And in the middle of the night, he was attacked by, he didn't know what. We call it an angel, but he had this struggle and he fought. He was alone, right? He went back across the river to pick up some little things, and he's all alone in the middle of the night outside, and he's pounced on. And they fight all night long. And as the morning dawn comes and the sun starts to shine, the the one that Yaakov is struggling with, wants to go. What would you do if you fought all night, fought for your life, were attacked alone in an alley? And finally, as day breaks and you're still alive and so thankful that you didn't succumb in the fight, and the person that attacked you says, "Let me go," what would you say to them? Go, right? But what did Yaakov say? No, I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. What? What is that? It's the craziest thing. He was pounced on and attacked the whole night he's fighting. And he won't let his attacker go until he blesses him. And Rav Hirsch says that's because Yaakov remembered his mission in the world. And his mission is not physical life. It's not physical survival. The mission is to be a blessing, even to this attacker. And this attacker could only be blessed if he blessed Yaakov, right? I'll bless those who bless you, and I'll curse those who curse you. And all the nations of the earth will be blessed through you. Be a blessing. And Yaakov said, "Oh, I can't let you go. My job is to be a blessing on the planet. And the only way you can be blessed is if you bless me. So I'm going to hold on to you until you give me a bracha, because my job is to transform humanity through being a bracha here on this planet." So that is what Yaakov knew, and that's what we could learn, is our job is to behave in a way that our families, our neighbors, our countrymen see us and say, "Wow, God bless them." And when they say that, they'll be blessed and our nations will be transformed. That's our opportunity, is to be a blessing in this world, starting with our families, but then moving out. The more we behave in shining that light, the more others can look at us and say, "Wow, that's amazing. You should be blessed." And we can then be a blessing. They'll be blessed through us. Be'ezrat Hashem. May we all be able to leave behind our past and jump into a fabulous, light-filled, wonderful future.